What's up, everybody? It's me, Rich. I'm back with another episode of Behind the Counter 2.0, BTC 2.0. Thank you for all the support. This week marks the 20th episode, and my guest is Caitlin Yarsky. Check it out. Hey, guys, welcome to the show. Caitlin Yarsky. Caitlin, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am not terrible. I looked on your Twitter feed this morning, and I saw that you were recommending Eurovision to a friend of yours, and they scoffed at you.
Yes. The nerve.
Seriously, the nerve. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's great. Well, it's I've actually never heard of Eurovision before I saw that movie.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so I was watching it and I was like, this is a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's wild. But it's like surprisingly heartwarming. You know, it's like it's funny and silly, but it's like also kind of sweet.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like people always want to poo-poo Will Ferrell, but
Yeah.
listen, the guy delivers.
He does. I mean, you know, like he might have some hit or miss movies, but when he hits, he really hits.
Exactly. He's kind of like a weird institution at this point.
Yeah. And he really commits. I mean, if you ever see his like Harry Carey SNL sketches.
Oh my God.
Mean, like what, you know, it's great.
Oh, it's insane. Like the even like the Ron Burgundy stuff where,
oh my God, it's awesome.
Like when he does appearances on other like programs as that character.
Like I've seen that before.
It's nuts. Like you got like there's a couple of like podcasts. Like he's got a Ron Burgundy podcast, but there's like if you look up his appearances as that character, it's such a committal to an insane level, you know. Like you'd appreciate it.
Yeah, he's great.
So let's talk comic books. Sure. You're currently working on Black Hammer Reborn. That was the impetus for me to contact you because as soon as I opened the book, I was like, who is this person with drawing these amazing facial expressions? And it was you. So
well, thanks.
So I know you've been in comics for a number of years, right?
I started about 6 years ago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you doing before comics? Like how did you break in? What's your story?
Right. So I went to school for illustration, and I ended up doing game design since I graduated. I still do game design actually. So right now I'm doing UI design, I've been doing games forever, and I just while that sounds like a dream job to most people, right? It's not really my bag exactly. I'm very grateful to have the job, but I'm also like, I'm not really a gamer. So it's like, I was trying to figure out where my illustration stuff, my personal illustration stuff would fit in, you know, because we did a lot of like mobile games and stuff like that. So like I was doing a lot of SpongeBob, you know, and it's like not quite as fulfilling as doing your own style of stuff. So, at one point I quit and went freelance and decided to go into comics. So that was about 6 years ago. Yeah.
Were you a comic book fan growing up?
I was, but not really in like a typical, like not in the superhero kind of comic way, more like indie comics, you know, so Mouse and things like that, Persepolis. And then the Sandman was like the big one for me when I was like in college. Somebody handed me the Sandman and it blew my mind. So yeah.
You know, the Sandman thing is very funny to me because I feel like everybody has that same story, right? And I think that Neil Gaiman is so supernatural that he's the one handing out these books to people, you know, where he takes the form of whoever it is. I just did an interview with Ron V this morning, and he literally almost said word for word the same thing. I was in college.
Oh, really?
And somebody handed me Sandman. And, you know, you said it, and I'm like, it's Neil Gaiman. He's inhabiting the body of these people and giving them Sandman, you know?
But that's so funny because we just had a small interaction on Twitter yesterday because I was just going on about it, Layla Starr, because it was just so beautiful and well written, and it's awesome.
So like Sandman did it for you, and after that, like what went on in your head as soon as you picked up that book? Because it's such a seminal work, and not only do I think it's like a lot, that's how my wife got into comics, you know, like Sandman, and then like how many, like I think 8 out of 10 people I know it was Sandman. So how did it affect you?
I think So I think the writing was just so different and pulls you in so well to these worlds. Like, you know, it's that kind of writing that when you're younger, and it's easier to get lost in a world. You know, like I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings when I was a teenager, and I mean, I tried to learn Elvish and everything. Like it was really sad. But I was talking about this actually recently with somebody about how it's kind of, there was like this time when you're growing up where you could totally get lost in another world. Like it was like easy. It was just like an escapist kind of thing. And you could just do that. You could just get like completely disappear. And it's much harder to do that for me anyway, as an older person. And like, I think that was like one of those formative times for me where it just sucked me into this world and I was just lost in it. And yeah, because I was like 18. I think it's you know, it's because it's not the superhero type of stuff. So it's kind of bringing you in fresh, you know, because I started with Preludes and Nocturnes.
Okay.
So it starts you off fresh and kind of like brings you into this world with, you know, no expectations of knowing anything. And I think that's a big part of it too. Like there's a bunch of like superhero stuff that I've never even gotten into because I'm just like so intimidated by the number of stories. Like I don't even know where to start.
It's like superhero books are like everybody's favorite long-running soap opera, you know.
Yes,
where it's like,
it is.
Where do I begin, you know? Or like we contemporarily, like a Doctor Who, you know, like do I start in the 50s or what, you know, because that's the longevity of these creatures of these IPs, you know. And you know, like to touch on the fact of something that you just mentioned, where you know, when you're younger, you're able to like inhabit these worlds fully. Patton Oswalt does a great bit about how like Star Wars was his realm that he inhabits, and now that he has a daughter, he can't get into something new because he's too old. But the bit was basically him explaining at length every single thing about the new My Little Pony, you know. So I think like, you know, I think there's still magic out there, you know what I mean? And I think that's like such a sweet and refreshing thing, especially I think with comic books, you know. So your art style is very unique, you know, like how did you hone that craft? Is it through your, like, I assuming the work you did in the gaming industry is a very high pressure.
And I learned so much working in games. I don't even know what kind of art I would be doing if it wasn't for that experience. You know, I learned a lot about typography. I learned about composition and color theory, just like things that, not that I didn't learn anything in college, but just that it's like, you know, when you're learning on the job doing games, it's a whole other, it's a whole other thing. So it's a very high pressure thing. But yeah, I think comics has been the most arduous. Like I mean, I've worked in a bunch of different fields, and I think comics might be the hardest for me anyway.
Really?
Yeah, I mean the most rewarding because you have more creative control, but you could literally never stop working. You know?
Yeah, there was a creator I interviewed not too long ago, and I never thought about it this way, where he was like, the process of making a comic book is the most asinine thing you could do because it takes so long to make a book that somebody consumes in 5 minutes. Yeah. But are you working like, are you like doing 8-hour days on your art?
Probably more than that.
Wow. Okay.
And I do a full-time freelancing job with the game stuff. So it's not, I don't have a very healthy balance right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you doing this interview. Clearly you're very busy.
No. I mean, I appreciate you having me. I was just, and I don't mean to, like, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities I have. I just, it's just, right now I'm kind of like, because the games are still paying the bills and everything. So I'm still doing that as a full-time day job. And then at night and weekends, and, you know, working full-time on Black Hammer. So
do you want the comic books to be your main thing?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good.
That'd be awesome. What are some of your influences? You know, like I said, just the way your art lays out, and you know, on Black Hammer, and let's say a book like Bliss, where you know there's a heavy concentration, at least I feel, on like facial expressions. It immediately remind me of like a Kevin McGuire, you know, who where it's like, this is how you convey emotion. What are some of your influences? Like, where did that come about?
Right. I would say probably film, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, film and animation in general. Like, I think I have a lot of influences from outside of comics, because it wasn't my main thing when I was growing up. You know, so I was an illustration major, but I was also doing fine art stuff when I was in high school. So there's a lot of like painters that I really love, and illustrators from like the early 20th century, and then like, you know, early 2D animation stuff, you know, and I think it's all kind of mixed in there. So, you know, if that helps, I don't know, like Brian Froud was my biggest influence when I was growing up.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did like those fairies books with Alan Lee, and that was my biggest thing growing up. And then, yeah. And then it was just, you know, 2D animation. I mean, the Iron Giant, like just, and then and film, just fantasy film in general, you know, Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal, and stuff that doesn't necessarily hold up perfectly today, but
it does and it doesn't, you know. I mean, Labyrinth, listen, I'm coming for the Bowie, you know.
right.
It's funny, like I could definitely see like kind of like that Brian Froud influence, definitely, like in your work, now that I think about it. And like he's such a sweet guy too. I don't know if you ever met him, but like he's like the nicest human being on the planet. That being said, so are you more traditional when it comes to your art? You said one of your influences is early 20th century artists. Can you name a couple?
Sure. And 19th century. I mean, I love
sorry.
Oh no, both. I mean, I wasn't correcting, I was just adding to that. Yeah, so Arthur Rackham is one of them I really love. You know, and I love John Singer Sargent. So there's like a lot of like painters that do really detailed paintings that I think I try to have some influence on when I'm doing the like more rendered paintings for like covers and stuff like that. And I love, you know, Norman Rockwell's great. Lion Decker's great. Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else off the top of my head. But Mucha, you know, I love Mucha. So like Mucha was a big influence for like some of the layouts for Bliss, because it's very like Art Nouveau. You know, I tried to kind of like put like big shapes together, lots of circles, and you know, like mirroring things together. So
that's fascinating. I think you're giving myself and whoever's going to listen to this like a little bit of an education here, which I really appreciate. You know, like I think that's awesome. I love hearing what people's influences are, regardless of like writing or drawing or art, stuff like that. Are you more of a traditional artist, like pen and paper, or have you crossed over into digital, or is it like a combination of both?
Combination. I would like to do everything traditional if I could, but it's more of a time issue for me. So it's kind of a mix. You know, when I have the time, I will usually sketch something out. I'll sketch like a layout out on in Clip Studio Paint, which is my preferred program. It's a lot like Photoshop, but it has a better feel, brush feel, and pencil feel. So anyway, yeah, so I'll sketch it out really light, and print it out really light, like really light. And I'll print it out on I have like a 11x17 printer. And that way I don't have to like worry about the sketching part traditionally, and then I can ink over that. So that's how I do the traditional stuff. But if I'm doing just digital, then it's Clip Studio. And right now it's heavily more in the Clip Studio realm, digital realm. But I am trying to build up the traditional stuff more and more, because I just signed on with a rep, Cadence Comic Art.
Very cool.
So I want to give them more and more, you know, traditional work if I can.
That's awesome. And you know what? Like, it's like good luck to you with that, because that's going to blow up like big time, like specifically, I feel like now there's like, because of the pandemic and the post-pandemic, there's such a I find that there's such a hunger and thirst for original art now, where it really is like people are, I as a fan, I really love people scooping up original art and like also just really scooping up every single comic book that they can get,
Yeah.
How was the reception for Black Hammer for yourself?
Oh my God, it was awesome. I mean, the thing about comics is like, I'm lucky enough to not have been, affected by like Comicsgate stuff or like, any of that. I mean, I haven't done any big 2 books, so maybe that's part of it. But like, I just like, everybody's been awesome and kind and professional and, flexible. Like when I was doing Black Hammer and doing Bliss at the same time, which was a mistake.
It's a lot of work.
and editors were very understanding when I was when I was like struggling to keep up with things. So yeah, now I know not to do 2 comics at the same time. But yeah, no, it's the reception for Black Hammer was awesome and really exciting, and Jeff has been wonderful. And I'm still pinching myself. I mean, it's such a great series. I really love the series, like as personal as a fan, you know what I mean? So to be able to just to be able to like interpret and do my own character, like version of those characters is like a dream come true. Yeah.
It's so fascinating too. Like that's awesome to hear, because like it seems like you have that glee to be working on like a property like that,
Yeah.
Do you see yourself ever working on like a big 2 book?
I don't know. I think so. I just need to catch up on whatever character I would be working on. So I think I would just need to familiarize myself with the property. Not that I haven't read any of them, like I've read some Batman, I've read some, and I've read some Daredevil and, I just don't know who it would be exactly, because I'm not as familiar with those storylines,
It's tough to like, I don't know like how to interpret that like properly, like the only thing the only real thing I could say is like my wife's reaction to that stuff, because like she loves comics and she'll read indie books. If I'm like, hey, check this out, like she'll love it or whatever, she'll find her own stuff. But then I'm like, ever since we've known each other, it's always been like, I'm not gonna read Batman. Like, what do you like? I can't get into this right now. Like it almost seems like it's homeworky at this point.
Yeah. It's even like Lord of the Rings, if you gave somebody that book, they'd be like, oh my God, this is so much.
Yeah.
Like, it's a commitment to some of these properties, so it's like I think if somebody could guide you through something, like I have a couple of friends in comics who I've been asking for recommendations for things, so that helps, because it's like, okay, just point me in a direction, and then that would make me feel better. Like, just, give me like a handful that are good for me to read. So
yeah, try not to overwhelm people, I guess, because like the Lord of the Rings stuff, you mentioned it a couple of times before. Like, I love Lord of the Rings, and also like I am flabbergasted that it was originally released as all 3 novels.
Yeah.
So at one point in history, there was something like this big that was like, this is it, and like, it's nuts. And it's like, even on their own, those books are gigantic, and the language is like, it's one of the most dense books I've ever read, like all the Lord of the Rings books. I would say like the Game of Thrones books too. I don't know if you've dived into those, but they're fantastic.
I read the first 2. Yeah,
they're great, but it's like it's borderline homework.
Yeah.
Which is always fascinating. So like moving forward, do you have any other projects besides like Black Hammer that you're working on, or like anything cooking for the future, or is it still kind of like, well, I need to make sure my plate is clear enough that I can do my full-time job?
Yeah. It's a mix of all that. I mean, I don't have anything lined up in the future for a main series, but I know that there are projects potentially waiting. So I'm kind of like, you know, I've been in talks with some people and just kind of been like, well, I'm like going to be busy until like next spring. So until then, I can't do anything, but I can do covers and stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing like a Firefly cover pretty soon, and just variants and stuff like that, which is what I have time for while I'm working on Black Hammer. And then after that, I really don't know. I think it's going to depend on the projects that come up, or just getting into talks. I'm realizing that when, like, as I kind of get deeper and deeper into comics, I think it's like, I'm realizing that you kind of have to schedule your stuff like 6 months at least in advance, you know? So I'm coming up to the point where I would have to start scheduling stuff. Like probably in the fall, I would probably, you know, start talking to people. So yeah, I really have no project lined up, but I'm excited to do anything really.
That's awesome. That's such a great attitude. You're upstate, right?
I was upstate for a lot of years, and then I moved down to New York City, and now I'm in Baltimore, and shortly I'm going to be moving to Portland, Oregon. So I'm all over the place.
That's awesome. You got to storm the Dark Horse offices when you're in Portland.
Yeah.
I asked that because I saw on your one of your profiles that it said you were in upstate. My follow-up question to that is, are you going to be at New York Comic Con this year? And do you like conventions?
I love conventions. I don't think I'm going to be at New York City Comic Con this year. I think I actually forgot to apply for Artist Alley.
It happens.
It's the pandemic. Yeah, I was just so I am going to be going to Thought Bubble this year.
Awesome.
In the UK. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's my first time. So yeah, not New York City Comic Con, but I'm going to Flower City Comic Con, which is the Rochester Comic Con, where that's the town I was in for 12 years.
Yeah, Rochester's nice. I like the dinosaur barbecue that's there.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
So like what I'm trying to phrase, and you have to pardon me also, like I've had a lot of caffeine this morning. So,
no worries.
So I'm a little bit zooted. So at what point did you say to yourself, you know what, like I really want to be doing comics full time? Because you have like it seems to me that you have a super sensible approach to working, you know, where I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people are just like, you know what, I quit my job and I'm doing this now, who cares, you know? Whereas like you're like, no, I need to have this, and then this is cool, you know?
Yeah. Wait, so what was the original question? How did I?
When did you turn around and say, you know what, I think I could, I really want to work towards doing this full time, you know?
Right. It was about 6 years ago, and I think I never gave comics a fair think because I just thought like it's not viable, or, you know, it's too much work. It's you wouldn't make enough money. Like I just in my head I had all these like barriers, so I never even really considered it as a career option. And then when I did, it opened up the whole thing, because I thought, oh, I've been doing comics my whole life, and I just never really thought about it as like being a comics person. Like I've done comic projects in school. My essay to get into college was a comic, like a 6-page comic. Like I've been doing them. I just never like thought about it as like a thing I could do, you know, for professionally. So so that was a big moment. And I think it's also exciting because it's you know, I realized, people hate making the allusion to movies when it comes to comics, but I don't care. I think of it as like making animated film almost.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you get to be the art director and the casting director and the not, I mean, depending on the writing, on the, you know, how much freedom you have, you know, with the writing, but like, you know, and the if you're doing the colors, you get to be the you know, you're doing the color palettes and the cinematography, and it's like you get all this control. And I'm a total control freak, I guess, because I love that. But you're making this whole world for people, and it's much more of like your voice and your vision with this writer. So it's two people making this huge world together, or three or four, you know what I mean? But it's like a small team.
Right.
Which means more, I feel like, which means more creative, more vision, and just more of like a pure, like, this is from our imaginations, you know, kind of thing.
And you guys get to push each other too, you know, like as you're working on scripts or colors or lettering or like all of the above. And
yeah,
you know, like as a fan, like I'm a lifelong fan, but I also, like, the older I get, the more I appreciate, you know, creators who can cite animation and film as an influence, because it is sequential art. You know, like there's no story without. I think there's like there's a division between that sort of ideology in fans and like with artists too. Like your art specifically, it's your sequential art is fantastic, you know, so you're able to, like, even if there wasn't any script, you can fully enjoy that story, you know, like the panels in Black Hammer Reborn #1 where she hands her husband the photograph of him kissing the other woman and tells him to get out.
Yeah.
Without any words, I'm using you as an example, without any words, that page still would have been extremely heartbreaking, you know? And I think that's something that comic books need, you know?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I love those moments, like those I live for those moments. Like there's so much emotion in Black Hammer, and especially in this run, because it's a much more, it just feels like a much more personal, you know, kind of development story, at least in the beginning, you know. So it's there's so many scenes like that with these characters that are just, you know, having really really subtly emotional interactions, and it's just my favorite thing is kind of trying to portray that. So yeah, and it's so funny you said that about animation. I never thought of it that way, that it's sequential art. It totally is. Yeah, I mean, if you look at like Sword in the Stone and like you know, it's just like the Fox Robin Hood and you know,
one of my favorites.
Yeah, American Tail. Oh, who is that animator that did all those? I can't remember now. He started his own company. It's escaping me for the moment, but
I'm fried when it comes to certain things, and that's one of them, you know.
No, it's like, okay. Yeah, there was an animator that did a specific look, in, you know, you can kind of point him out in different Disney movies, and then he went off and did his own.
Are you thinking of Ralph Bakshi?
Don Bluth.
Don Bluth. Okay.
Don Bluth. Yeah. Cool. There you go.
Yeah. That's, now it's all coming back to me now. But yeah, like those movies are a good example too, because like not only do you remember like, I'll use Robin Hood and Sword in the Stone as an example. Like you remember specific frames from those films just because of like the lead ups to them. And then if you really think about it, you can see Robin Hood on the stilts, you know, like you can hear and see the visuals of the song between Robin Hood and Little John and the rooster playing the lute, you know? And I think like, you know, like subconsciously or unconsciously, comic books do kind of follow suit with that. Like at least good ones, you know?
Yeah. Definitely.
So how did you get linked up with the Black Hammer guys? Were you pitching, or did they approach you? Like,
so I pitched. I had heard through a friend in the industry that he was looking for artists, and he offered to bring my stuff to the editor at Dark Horse. So I put together, you know, like a multi-page PDF of Buffy, Bliss, and I don't think I sent Coyotes. I think I just sent those two. And I was just like, here you go, and please send these along. And so I guess there was a pool of people that Jeff was looking at, and Dan was looking at Dark Horse, and they just, I think he liked my stuff, and he sent me an email. So
that's awesome. Nice and simple. That's
yeah. I mean, I think it's once you're in the comic world and you've kind of developed a little bit of a reputation, or you've like made, you know, some connections, you know, with the people that you worked with, and it's been more positive experiences and stuff like that, then you start to be able to kind of get more other projects more easily, because it's you know, you're kind of in the network then, you know.
Yeah, I think with everything, it's kind of fascinating how, like, you'll get a million no's, but then once your work gets better and better and more solid, you'll become undeniable, and people will just say, listen, we want you on this, we want you on that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's like a fascinating ride that people could take. All right, Caitlin, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions and then we'll get you out of here. You're clearly very busy.
Sure. No, sorry.
Caitlin, what is the sandwich of your dreams?
A sandwich of my dreams. Whoa.
That's my Larry King hard-hitting question.
Let's see. I'm going to say like a Long Island turkey club.
Really? That's a good sandwich. Bacon too?
Oh, yeah.
Avocado?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. That's a good sandwich.
Yeah.
It's funny, like a lot of creators that I asked that to, a lot of them have New York specific sandwiches, which I kind of like. I get a kick out of that,
Well, I grew up on Long Island, and once I left Long Island, I realized how special food was.
Yeah, where in Long Island were you?
I was in Huntington, so it's about like an hour east of New York. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Queens. I'm in Flushing. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Huntington.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. I went to school in Old Westbury. I went to NYIT. So
no kidding. I used to go to Westbury Meeting House for a Quaker meeting when I was growing up.
Oh, that's awesome. Very small world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think the New York thing, and for some reason New York and sandwiches just kind of like go together.
It's probably because they stack the meat and fillings like higher than your jaw can unhinge. It's like insane. You can't even. Yeah, you have to like take stuff out of it to fit it in your mouth.
It's almost like it's enough sandwich for like a couple of days. That's what they're telling
absolutely.
you. Yeah. Caitlin, where can everybody find you?
So I'm slowly leaving Facebook. So I'd say probably Twitter and Instagram.
Cool.
Twitter is Yarsky with 3 R's, YARRR and my Instagram is just Caitlin Yarsky. So you can find me on both of those. I try to post work in progress stuff that's not too spoilery for Black Hammer, and personal things too sometimes. So
very cool, Kate. And listen, again, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I would love to talk to you again at some point once, like maybe after the Black Hammer stuff, like last issue.
Sure.
Very cool,
I mean, this has been great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin.
All right. Bye-bye.
Caitlin, thank you so much. That was awesome. Can't wait to see where your work takes you. Listen, we got a little bit of I'm trying something new here. I'm rocking that 50mm lens right now. I think I'm at 1.8. I feel like it's looking nice and crisp. You can see my lumpy head in all its glory. I want to thank you guys for tuning in every week. Last week was my 40th birthday. This week is 40 plus 1 week. I'm feeling pretty good, I gotta say. Let's jump into books of the week. Guardians of the Galaxy number 16, man. Really dig it. Listen. Ego has been replaced with Dormammu as the living planet. I can't wait to see what happens. The Cosmic Marvel stuff is fantastic, especially now that the X-Men got introduced into the Cosmic Marvel universe more so now than ever because they are colonizing Mars. That's right, the mutants are colonizing Mars. Superman and the Authority number 1. Oh man, from Morrison, Janin, and Belair. What a book. I think this is an alternate DC history revisionist kind of multiverse story where Superman's getting older. He couldn't prevent the Kennedy assassination. He's getting depowered, and he's putting together like his own super team comprised with the first member being Manchester Black, which was a excellent Superman villain from many years ago that they would bring back every so often. But he's a really cool addition to the book. They really hate each other, and you can kind of tell the way Morrison writes it. It was a strong number 1. Time Before Time number 3. I love this book. Great time travel kind of caper book. It's very detailed, so I think this is issue 3. You really have to read them over and over again to kind of keep up, which is cool. And that lends itself to being like when this book finally gets collected, it's going to be a great addition to any shelf. And my book of the week, Black Hammer Reborn. Jeff Lemire, Caitlin Yarsky, Dave Stewart, Nate Pecos. I just talked to Caitlin. She's doing such a bang-up job on this book. It's continuing kind of flashbacks and flash forwards and the present day of the Black Hammer universe. And where's that hammer? Who does it end up with? This is a story about family. Like all the Black Hammer stuff has been in the past, and this is kind of like the new explanation and expansion of that family. Guys, thank you again. Please gently hit that subscribe button. I want to get up to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. Next week, we're going to have another interview, and the week after that, we're going to have another interview, and we're going to keep going until we hit 100 creator interviews. And then after that, who knows? Maybe I'll host something somewhere, maybe at Comic-Con. You can follow me at BTC Rich on Twitter. This is BTC Rich X. This is the channel on YouTube. You can follow my other podcast at Matt Men Podcast as well. I'll see you baby soon. Later.